People are a victim of their culture.
Yeah.
Everyone are raised within their
Yes.
culture. And so when you present your ideas, it's hard for people to comprehend.
Yes, it is. Unless they spend time, or they read,
Yeah.
or they go to the library and read a book like The New American History, which tells us how we took the land from the Indians. You know, real history books don't cover that too much, you know. It always shows us doing great things, but they didn't tell you in the history of England, the early English people, the people in the high places used to hunt black people as animals. Did you know that? They shot them aborigines. They thought they were creatures. You know, they used to, and there's nothing like that in the history books. All the stupidity and things we did that didn't work, and the fact that we gave people radar at Pearl Harbor, and they didn't know how, that they didn't use it properly. The Japanese planes came over. So all the money we spend on defense and security, I think I mentioned yesterday that they check your baggage, your luggage, to make sure you have no guns on airplanes. But there are other ways. Like I said, I can design a sports jacket that when ignited, which is a built-in ignition system, the buttons ignite, give off poison gas and kill everybody on the plane. You know, it's not just guns. That's not the only way. And when other countries didn't like us, they just hijacked airplanes and flew into the building. We didn't allow for that. Damn it, they got mad. And there was no airplanes that shot them down. Where's your defense system? So I feel, whatever you can think of as a defense system, there are other people that have minds too. And they can think around that. Do you understand?
Yeah.
The only real defense is bridging the difference between nations, bringing them together. So maybe in the future there'll be a Pentagon in Washington of sociologists, social scientists, people that study different cultures and how to bring them together, but not defense systems who only bring up weapon systems. You don't solve problems with weapons, because if you bomb cities, they won't forget that you killed their grandfather or their father or their sons, and you're building hatred for the future. War does not solve problems. Years ago, Henry Ford, by the way, didn't believe in war. I don't know whether you know this, but he had a peace ship developed, and he brought all the peaceful professors, put them on a ship to send them to Germany to try to talk peace. Well, what happened, the newspapers kept writing that the peace people were fighting with each other on the ship. This isn't true. And they killed the project. They believe I'm an idealist that wants to build a nice world where everybody behaves nicely. I'm nothing like that. I believe in using resources intelligently and educating all people, but not in business administration, not in banking, not in investment broking, not in law. But education means taking care of the oceans, not dumping stuff, taking care of the forests,
the environment.
And so when the protesters march with the sign, "Don't cut down the forest," if people keep going to Home Depot and buying lumber, they're going to cut down the forest. Those protest marches don't seem to work. There were many protest marches for everything. They don't work because they're within the establishment. They get beaten up by police because police work for the establishment, not the majority of people. And if a policeman did understand that, he'd resign from the police force.
Yeah, but there is a need for the police, and therefore the police is there.
Today, in this society, yes.
Yes.
Because of deprivation, threats, even the women that fought for women's rights used to march, and if they got out of line, the police would beat them up or put them in jail. Every great human move forward was met with resistance. You understand that? If you had slaves in the old days, if you taught them to read, you were fined. Did you know that? That should be in your history books. But they don't put that aspect in your history books because that will discourage people. And then they're too difficult to manage if you teach them the truth. You can't fight a war by saying, look, some of the Japanese are okay, some are mean, some lie, some are thieves, some are good-natured, some are peaceniks. You know, you can't do that in times of war. Then you build conflict in the army. Like during the army, I was drafted into the army, you know that, I think you know that. And I said that in order to drive into a military base, you had to present your credentials. I can design a pad, when the guy opens it, his eyes are sprayed with acid. You know what I mean? So you can't defend yourself. There's no way to. If other people have brains and use it. So I try to tell the army, when I was in the army, I missed the targets and everything else. I was not good with a gun, really. So they sent me to Wright Field to design development of aircraft. It's just an aircraft testing center. So first thing I said was, I only design safety devices for airplanes. Do you understand? I don't know anything about weapons. That's not true. But I said that to see if I can just be assigned safety devices. So I was given that assignment. First thing they asked me was, can you make a bomb that goes out sideways instead of up? You know, most bombs explode upward. I said, I don't know how to do that. Then I told them that I only design safety devices.
Yeah.
You understand? Now, how I felt about the Japanese attack at Pearl Harbor. There was a book called The Secrets of Pearl Harbor, with a foreword written by Admiral Halsey, American admiral. And the story was how we got the Japanese to attack Pearl Harbor. Did you know that book exists? See, and if you don't know that, how the hell are you going to evaluate it? I got that book first. I read 100 Million Guinea Pigs. Then I read a book called Arms and the Men. That book shows American holdings in German companies, and that we didn't bomb German munition dumps because DuPont had shares and holdings in it. You know what I mean? So how can your army be decent? And when I draft people into the army, they should draft all the war industries so no one makes a buck out of war. I mean, they get the same basic pay as a soldier. He puts his life up for this country. Therefore, if the government, meaning spends money to develop airplanes and it's government funds, the government's not allowed to print money. They have to go to private banks and borrow money to fight a war. Did you know that? Where they conscript your life, they should conscript. They say buy war bonds, that brings Johnny home faster. Then you should take all the money from banks that bring Johnny home. Don't you see that? Because it's all I'm talking about is for the benefit of people. I don't want to kill the capitalists. I think that capitalism is inefficient. It was great 100 years ago. Why do you want to do it?
Quick break.
Yeah. And the next question I have for you is, you said people are highly influenced by their environment.
Yes.
And in regards to this, what are the origins of the ideas that you are promoting? Your ideas.
The origins, okay. I lived in New York, and there were all kinds of people. Irish, Greeks, French, Jews, Italians, Norwegians. All my friends were mixed. But I couldn't deal with them if they went to church or synagogue or practiced their religion. So I began to turn kids around when I was a kid. I began to talk to them about evolution and what science means. Now, I had to do that in order to deal with them, because they remained professional Arabs and professional Irishmen. They would say, "Did you know that Lincoln was Irish, lad?" You know, and all the Irish spoke the same way, because they came from the same environment. The Jewish kids would talk like this: "So if you miss the bus, you'll wait a little longer, you'll catch a bus." That they all spoke that way. The Italian kids said, "Hey, where you going, huh?" That's the way they spoke in New York. And I can see where they're coming from. I never had a kid in New York say, I say, old chap, are you a flyer? That's in England. They speak that way. So you can see how countries influence a language. There was important people in Spain that lisp when they talk. So what's new? And the Spanish people in that community, all of them speak with their tongue like that, because important people did. There's a book called What Veblen Taught, Torsten Veblen. He wrote a book called The Theory of the Leisure Class. And he was a college professor, and they kicked him out of school because he wrote books on the origin of behavior. And so they built a special school for Veblen in New York called the New School for Social Research, because the establishment didn't like what he taught. Now here's what he said. He said in the old days, aristocrats used to hire people to stand in the hallway like that, do nothing. The more people you had standing doing nothing, the more respect you commanded. But these people were uneducated. They were there to protect the people too. They used to wipe their nose on their sleeves all the time. And it looked very bad because the guy put new clothing on them, but they used to wipe their nose. So they didn't like that, so they put buttons here on the sleeve. So the guy turned the sleeve, oh yeah. So then they put the buttons in different patterns until that stopped. And that's how come you had buttons on a man's jacket. See, Veblen used to describe the origin of all things. Do you understand that? We still have buttons on a men's jacket, which are not used for anything, but it came from that. Then there was a short king that designed high heels, but he didn't permit anybody in the court to wear high heels, because he wanted to stand above everybody else. Veblen wrote about that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, there was an important woman in the court, princess, that had a sloping chin. So she designed garments, I'm sure you've seen them, that look like that, to cover the sloping chin. And everybody in the court says, gee, I'd like that, because the princess is wearing that. You know, they're like monkeys. They imitate. People want, if you show a movie star next to a Mercedes, the guy wants to buy a Mercedes. You have to do that if you want to sell cars. So I'm saying Veblen wrote about all these things to show people that we're victims of culture. Do you understand that? Yes.
How about who influenced you?
Yeah,
Who influenced you?
Where did I get my different kind of thinking?
yeah,
My grandfather. He said to me, when I was a kid, very young, 9, 10 years old, he said, Jacque, people came from all over the world, and the language you speak was brought from Europe, from England, especially America, and we speak butched English, you know, our own interpretation. Is that clear? So he said, people came all over the world. They brought the printing press from Germany. They brought ideas. China used to have man-carrying kites 1,000 years ago. So you can't say the Wright brothers were the first to fly if you don't know that. They weren't very good, but they guys got killed too. But anyway, the more you read on foreign countries, you'll see that America is comprised of all the mathematics, or the most of it, good mathematics, came from ancient Egypt and Rome. Because a guy named Algebra, an Arab, gave us algebra. So my grandfather said, we owe the greatness of this country the contributions made by people that came from all over the world. So he said the language, he gave me the evidence, you know. So I realized that. He said, Jacque, if you pledge allegiance to any one country, you're negating all the other countries. So when the teacher said, all right, children, raise your right hand and pledge allegiance to the flag, I refused. And the teacher didn't ask me why. She grabbed me by the ear right to the principal's office. And the principal said to the teacher, you're excused. After she left, he put his arm around me. Then he said, why don't you want to pledge allegiance to the flag? I said, because of the obligation and wonderful contributions of all nations, I decided to pledge allegiance to the earth and everyone on it. He said, well, that's very nice. He said, but what about America? Doesn't that mean anything to you? I said, it means that people came here from other countries, and there were other people living here called Indians. And we bought Manhattan for a couple of pieces of objects which we gave the Indians, and we gradually pushed the Indians back into the desert and took the most valuable land and put the Indians out on the desert. I said, I don't like that. So I don't think Americans are any better than anybody else. But the Indians that fought back, there were a lot of Indians that didn't accept being pushed around. So they came back with bow and arrows and shooting on soldiers. And so we put up a bulletin saying, for every Indian you kill, you get paid so much money. So the people used to hunt Indians, American soldiers and American people. And one guy would go to the government office and say, I just killed 10 Indians. And the government said, how do we know that? Bring back a piece of the Indian. That's where scalping came from. Americans invented scalping, not the Indians. They'd scalp, bring back 6 scalps, you get paid for it. You understand? Yeah. Well, I didn't like that. The book is called The New American History, if you really want my source. So I didn't like all those things, and then I realized in books it said the sun never sets on England. Well, how did they get all that land? They weren't coming, here's some land for you. They took it. They shot, murdered, assassinated thousands of people to get that land. Were their intentions bad? No, they thought it was good for the British Empire. You know, nobody looks at themselves as bad.
Exactly.
You know, so I don't like any of that stuff. To me, I think that all people, if brought up with science and technology, can learn how to relate to each other.
Yeah.
I don't believe they have to kill each other. But the Army thinks in terms of defending what we got. Well, where did we get it? We took it. Somebody else wants to take it. So it's normal for any country deprived of water or resources to invade the nearest country that has those resources. That's normal to any hungry country. Do you understand that?
Yes, it's natural.
I just have a quick question.
You really have to speak up for Jacque.
Yeah. Okay, I just have a quick question. You were talking a lot about the seminars you did in the university or in...
I used to have seminars.
Yeah. Well, you talk about the technocracy.
Yes.
And you were...
I was a member.
You were a member of that.
I used to be.
Yeah, could you elaborate on that?
When I went to California, this guy that flew the airplane that didn't bomb Minnesota, he didn't know why. He found out after the war there was a book called Arms and the Men, and he was a member of technocracy. He said, you would like technocracy because it wants to use science and technology to advance culture. Meeting. And they did use science and technology for government. And I thought that was wonderful, so I joined right away.
Yes.
But after a few weeks, the meetings were very good. They were about technology. So I said, I don't see any blacks in the organization. To Howard Scott, he was the chief engineer. He said, well, let them start their own section. Now that bothered me, see, because I couldn't defend technocracy then. Then I said, how about Orientals? I don't see any Orientals. He said, he was sincere, by the way. He said, the Oriental mind can't grasp technology. Now don't forget, when I was a kid, all the Orientals wore pigtails, had a little black hat, and the button suits, they were all black, and they had their hands in their sleeves, and they all behaved alike, just like Irish kids behave like Irish kids.
Well,
Italian kids like Italian kids. Do you understand that?
And,
So I could see that maybe after 2 or 3 generations, the Orientals would be, hey, Mac, have you got a cigarette? Just like we speak. He said, no, the Orientals are different. So I resigned because I could not defend that. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I asked a lot of engineers when I worked for the aircraft company to come and listen to Howard Scott. He was the chief engineer of technocracy. He spoke at the Shrine Auditorium to thousands of people during the Depression. So I asked Italians and Greeks, they were all different nationalities that worked at the aircraft company, and he attacked the Italians. He said, the goddamn wops brought the mafia from Italy, you know.
It's a lot for
I
us
said, well,
to
that's a certain
get
small group.
away from what
He
we
said, no,
do
the Italians have
without
inclinations
getting
along
paid
those
for it.
lines.
That's how we
And the
support
Jews are
the
inclined toward money.
We have
And
no
the
right to
Irish are
stop
inclined
us
toward
out.
becoming
We have to
alcoholics.
decide
And the Polacks
to
are dumb,
sponsor our own work.
because the Polacks believed in the cavalry
I will talk to
and
them.
horseback.
That's a
And the Germans believed in war tanks.
very
So they
far
wiped
control
out the Poles
without getting
very
some kind
easily,
of
because they
compensation
didn't
for
make
it.
the change.
And,
You understand?
Yeah.
Anyway,
you know, in the past, we
I resigned because I could not defend it. One more thing, on the application of membership in technocracy, there was a word called race, and that bothered me. Because I knew in New York all kinds of kids interested in science of different. When you take them away from their little group, they become international. So I used to work on kids, making them international and general science, you know. But mothers, when they saw me coming down the street, they pulled their kids in the house. Can you understand that? Okay. Like schools. When they find out what I talk about, they try not to invite me, because you can't manage students that are well informed. Can you understand that? I understand why they do it, but I don't think that they're very bright to do that. They should not be afraid of ideas and not be afraid of criticism. But you have to know what criticism means. If a person comes up to me and says, I don't like your system, I can't do anything with that. I said, what is it that you don't like about it? Well, the bricks that you use are not strong enough. That's good. You know, but if they say, I don't like your system, or it'll never work, I can't deal with that. Because people used to say, man will never fly. He'll never get to the moon.
Yeah.
Just say, I don't know enough about the subject to evaluate it.
Yeah.
Isn't that, wouldn't that be more proper?
Exactly.
I don't know enough about it. No, man will never get to Mars. Not in 1,000 years. That's an opinion.
Yeah.
You think the guy had studied space science for years, and he came up with that, but he didn't. So the danger is giving people the right to their own opinion.
Yeah.
So in the future, kids will learn to speak a new way. When you see an airplane without wings, instead of saying it'll never fly, it doesn't have any wings. The question is, how do you propose to lift off the ground without wings? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You want to inquire by the guy that's working. And the guy says, someday you'll have television. How can you do that? That's impossible. That is not inquiry. How do you project an image onto a screen? How would you do it? And the guy doesn't know technology. He doesn't even know what question to ask. That's why people in government don't even know what the question is. They think if people use drugs, say no to drugs. That is not an answer. That's a wish. When they say, when man dies, there must be more to life than that. He must go on, into another world. His soul leaves the body and goes to another world. Now, in the other world, everything is established. There's no money in heaven, according to the Bible. There's no social stratification, no poverty, but angels fly around with wings. If they flew around without wings, that would be a miracle. What do you need wings to fly for?
Yeah.
So heaven didn't make sense because it says in some Bibles, we were put here to worship God, to say how great thou art, how wonderful thou art. Well, this is a big fucking egotist that would make you to worship him only, That's why it says, honor thy father and mother in the Bible. Well, my mother, I told you, was a racist and a bigot. I don't know if you remember that. So I did not honor her in that area. When I brought a Japanese kid home, my mother said, I don't want that kind of sound. Loud enough for the kid to hear it. You remember that? I did talk about that.
Yeah.
And so I used logic on my mother. I said, you don't know him, hear him out, get to talk to him. You'll find out he's a very nice person. My mother says, I don't want them around. Logic obviously doesn't work on people that don't know what logic is. But I said, Jacque, I'm talking to myself. If you can't change your mother, you're not going to change the world. So I figured I've got to change my mother. So I told her a lie. As I was swimming in the East River, I think I talked about it. And I couldn't get ashore. This isn't true. There's a high wall in the East River. And I was drowning. And Masato, the Japanese kid, worked on a boat, and he threw a lifesaver to me. And he saved my life. My mother said, oh my God. She said, you mean he saved your life? Yeah. And I was very rude to him. I said, yes, you were. Please, Jacque, ask him to come back. I want to beg forgiveness. That's my mother, you know. So I said, I don't know if he'll come back now. To get her to plead with me. Do you understand? And she's pleading with me. I says, I tried to talk to you and you wouldn't listen to me. And she says, all right, I was wrong, which is great. And I called Masato and said, when you come in the door, my mother wants you to come back. She wants to beg forgiveness, wants you to have dinner, you know, and all that. I said, when you come in the door, she's going to hug you and kiss you and bless you, because that's her background. You understand? I believe people react to the way they were brought up, not reasonable. No one is reasonable. We're all victims of culture.
Yeah.
To a large extent, unless you read about other countries and talk to different people and travel and don't go to the American club, live with a French family or Italian family, get the feel of the culture. You find out they're all alike. They all love their kids. They all are nice people. Unless you come there angry, slammy-eyed bastard, Japanese, you know. That's the way we talk. We don't call Germans bad people. We call them krauts. I shot 3 krauts today. That's terrific. You know, puts a medal on you. That's why you don't feel bad. So war, and all that sort of stuff. It's very difficult to step out of your culture. It is hard because, you know, somebody once said at a public meeting, Jacque, when do you get your next check from Moscow? You know, I get all that kind of stuff. Or you're a fascist or a communist or something. They don't know how to understand. They don't read. They just blurt it forth, you know. It says, they get it from the Bible. Because in the Bible it says, there will always be war and rumors of war. I don't like that at all. You understand? And then when you see poor people, it says in the Bible, we shall always have the poor amongst us. I don't like that. Because I know we can outproduce and turn out prefabricated houses. We can make safer cars so they can't hit each other. I know the Bible's wrong. Jesus never wrote anything, if you didn't know that. It's people that walked away and said, this is what Jesus meant, and that's where they disagree. So you get the Lutheran, the Seventh-day Adventist, because it's subject to interpretation. I hope that what I say is not subject to interpretation, because I'm trying to describe the detail.
Jacque, how about some of your stories of the Depression, because that had a big influence
Well, you
on
know, the Depression years, when I saw the unemployed and the veterans marching for their bonus, and they go out there throwing tear gas at them, that didn't look good to me at all.
No.
So
Yeah.
it turned me against the country I was brought up in. It turned me against the leaders. But I met a lot of wonderful people that said, if only we had decent people in government. You can't have that because there are lobbies in Washington that want you to represent the drug industry or the aircraft industry, and they pay off senators, pay them to help them get elected, and you have to take care of them when you get elected. You understand?
Yeah.
People put up money for people running for political office, and if the certain lobbies, you either represent them or you'll never get elected. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I would like you to tell how you came to think that the system should be changed, and why Marxism wouldn't be sufficient.
Because during the Depression, There were people sleeping in every empty lot. There were people up on soapboxes. That's where that came from. Talking about mankind united. Or that all people ought to join together and work toward a good life. But there was no detail. So I walked away, and there's another guy on the soapbox about socialism. The working classes being exploited by industry. That made sense. But he had no, how do you do that? There's no answers. There's another guy on the soapbox, communist. So I was standing there, he says, beat it, youngster. I was just a kid. So I said, no, I want to stay here. So he says, why? I says, I want to hear what communism is from a communist. Because I don't believe what our government says, what the Republicans say about the Democrats, or what the Democrats say about the Republicans. They all lie about each other. I'm sure you know that. Well, I knew that then, and I said, I want to hear your idea of communism for myself, not an interpretation. So he says, you can stay. And so after 1 hour, I said, I want to ask you 1,000 questions. Then he said, you have to go to the YCL, Young Communist League. He gave me an address, I went there, and the kids were smart and well-read. They were good. And I stood there and I said to them, if you get into power, how will you prevent corruption from some of the... You guys may be all right, honest and everything, but how will you prevent corruption? I really wanted to know. They said, when that time comes, we'll work on it. I said, all right, how are you going to house the masses of people? Well, we'll worry about that when that time comes. I said, let's start a technical branch of the Communist Party and work out how to prevent corruption and mass housing. So they said, you're deviationist. I didn't know what the word meant. They said, you're deviating from the teachings of Marx. I said, no, I'm trying to help you. He was a dope, the guy that ran the group. I don't say that's typical of all communists, but this guy was a jerk. He said, you're not sticking with Marx or Engels or any. So I said, I'm trying to help because you're trying to make a better world. I'm trying to prevent corruption and trying to build up a way of getting there. So he says, you'll have to leave. But the vice president of the Young Communist Party was about 17 years old. He said, let's hear him out. So they said, both of you have to leave. And they kicked us both out. So that was my experience with the Young Communist League. So I left. So, yes.
I don't think you ever finished with technocracy, did you? You got
Yes, I
sidetracked.
did. I told them all about how I went into it,
Okay.
joined, and why I resigned.
These are the
I
blacks
did.
and the, I might have gotten the phone. Okay.
I did.
I mean,
Yeah,
no,
you didn't
yeah.
hear that.
No, I
But anyway, technocracy is not a bad organization. It just says those certain things. If they can't be revised, I can't support it. Do you understand that? Okay. So when the guy says, you sound like a technocrat, I do believe in science and government. The methods of science, not scientists, because they're just as bigoted and prejudiced as anyone else. Don't think because a person's a scientist, he's open-minded. Scientists used to write books on why man can't get to the moon. Goddard, you know who Goddard is? The American rocket's a scientist. Paul Goddard. He worked on rockets in America. And he said, he was a scientist. He said, whenever I go to science conferences, I'm not to talk about rockets. For instance, then that puts you in the category of a dreamer. He wrote that in his book. So he says he couldn't talk about rockets, even the scientists, because it was so bigoted and prejudiced. So scientists are not always scientific. If a person were a scientist, you know the guy in the wheelchair that's very scientific, that talks of particle behavior?
Hawkins, yeah.
Oh, right. If he were a scientist, he'd look at the society first and say, hey, where do we go to war, we kill each other. He'd wonder why we go to war. Who the hell gives a shit about particles behavior while the world is falling apart? There are scientists today that work on heart disease and kidneys and all. I used to design medical equipment, artificial hips and all that, until I found out that a guy that had no legs couldn't afford to buy the stuff I designed. So what the hell good is it? only people that can afford that kind of surgery can get it. So I said, what the hell are you wasting your time for? Then I met with alcoholics and drug addicts, and I helped them out of it. But I did not care if people were cured of being a drug addict unless they were socially aware. So I made them socially aware, and then I work on them. Because if a guy stops drinking, so what does he do now? Nothing. He does nothing. So I want him to be a useful person in the world. So I would help those. So I worked on many, many alcoholics first. So they started their own section of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know what that group is? The group of alcoholics that say, I turn myself over to God, and with His help, I will stop drinking and all that. So this group, I took their gods away and said, if you want a better world, you got to get up off your ass and make it better. If you want a telephone, you have to invent it. If you want your children to be saner, you have to make them saner through education, you know. So they like that. So they started their own alcoholic group called the 105 group. On page 105 of the book Alcoholics Anonymous, it says, may every person conceive of God in their own way or no way, but as long as they practice, you know, this concept of being free to think of God in any way or no way, not fixed, not rigid. So they started 105 group because page 105 said that. But the other alcoholics that believe in God used to trample the 105 group, you understand, due to their conditioning background. The 105 group grew very fast, and they read books on science and technology, didn't invent their own answers. They learned how to say the most difficult words, I don't know. Once you say, where did all this come from if there's no God? I don't know. But the Bible says some guy called God made a man and a woman in a beautiful garden, and then He made a snake that tempted them. The snake walked upright, according to the Bible. And because the snake tempted them, God disliked that so much, He made the snake crawl on its belly. That's why snakes crawl on their belly. Snakes can move very freely through the grass. And the horses sleep standing up. Did you know that? All right. So the Bible says the reason is one saint asked the horse to take him across the river that was shallow. And the horse said, no. He said, from now on you're not going to sleep lying down. You have to sleep standing up. I don't like it. That's crap. It's no good. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's too low grade for me. So I don't accept it. But if the Bible appeared that God, a different concept, you know, I might have accepted it. But I've never found the concept. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Next question. We understand that there would be no geographical restrictions on people in the Venus Project.
In the future, you can travel wherever you want.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
You don't have to live in the cities.
Yeah.
You can. We think that people will live in a house maybe 2 years or less, and then want to live in the mountain community or on the beachfront or whatever they. That's up to each individual, not me. I don't make any decisions.
At this point, what would happen to nations and cultural heritage?
That they don't accept.
What would happen to nations and cultural heritage?
Well, I think that you've got to permit that to go on until they themselves, like when we went to Dubai, we were invited to Dubai, everybody had cell phones. So in order to repair the cell phones, they had to train some of their kids in electronics. So eventually they'll come around. But don't try to twist their wrist or send armies in to make democracy. Give them the best of technology, make it available, X-ray machines, MRI, and then they'd have to study technology and medicine instead of saying knock wood or wear rabbit's foot. You know, and when I was a kid, a rabbit's foot was very popular. People used to wear them around their neck for good luck. But the rabbit had 4 of them. It didn't do him any good. It was cut up. So I try to get people away from knocking wood, have a happy life, good luck. All that's bullshit. The only way you have a happy life is when you design highways so automobiles can't hit people and people walk across above on upper levels instead of saying, have a safe trip. Well, how would you make the boat unsinkable? That's how you say, have a safe trip. You know what I mean? But if a boat is sinking, they have women and children first. You know that. But I would not do that. I'd say, does anybody know how to navigate by the stars? He says, yeah, get in the boat. Do you know how to catch fish in the open sea? He says, get in the boat. Then the women and children. Do you understand what I mean? But women and children is just a stupid custom. We don't think things out. That wouldn't work. Okay.
Do you think that the cultural heritage holds people back?
I don't know if you were around yesterday when I said, an old Jewish man said, will you permit tradition? That's what he meant by that.
Yeah.
I said to him, will you? He says, of course. I said, the Ku Klux Klan meets every month for 75 years. Is that okay with you? He says, no. So I said, how do you select which tradition in the future? You know what I mean? What tradition? So he said, well, our tradition is a good one. Well, so does the Klan believe it's a good one. Did you know there were 3 million members of the Ku Klux Klan in America? How many of you knew that? That should be in our history books. They marched in Washington with their pointed hats. 3 million with people waving on the sides. So when I say, let's go back to the good old days, the good old days were more fascistic than democratic. In the old days, you had slavery in America. The Indians were driven to a reservation. Cowboys solved problems by shooting each other. They walked 10 paces, turned around and shot each other.
Yeah.
The good old days never existed. There was no such time as that. And the good old days were the slums of New York City. Terrible place where buildings would catch fire and they had no fire hose large enough to get to the top floor. And crime was rampant. And the American Irish used to fight with the American Italians. So the mafia established a godfather to protect the Italians. And then the Greeks had the Greek protectorate. So when Jewish kids walked through an Italian neighborhood, they walked through with numbers, like 6 kids. Then 6 Italians when they get in a fight. So it was a terrible place, early America. Being 93 years old, I've seen more of America than most of you guys, but I don't want you to take my word for it. You can get books on early America. It's in many books.
Yeah, and in the future there would be books also. It shouldn't.
Sure.
Our past shouldn't
on
necessarily be
everything,
forgotten.
even against the system I'm talking about.
Of course.
Yes, of course, because that's the way we learn. You should never be afraid of criticism. When you say you don't want to listen to that guy, he's a communist or whatever, you listen to him and you decide that.
So
that would be a democratic society, to me.
Yeah. And if a part of the society would want to keep on to the cultural heritage of their past.
Say they don't want to live in our cities. They can live outside, but they're not part of the co-op. We share, all the nations that join together, share resources, knowledge. But with those that don't want to join, do your own thing.
Yeah, okay.
But I think eventually their people will say, let's join up. Because we don't want to kill anybody or hurt anybody. They can see, but don't twist their wrist.
No.
Okay. You understand that?
Yeah, I understand.
You're free to stay in the new society or move out. That's up to you.
It's based.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't believe there is such a thing as free will because that's based on your background.
Yeah.
If you say, I decide to become a Catholic, that means you have the exposure to the Catholic viewpoint. If a guy says, I'm agnostic, it means he read more books and his decisions change. So free will doesn't exist, it's an illusion. Like you ask an Eskimo what he wants, it's a big igloo that's safe. He doesn't say, I want a stainless steel refrigerator. No Eskimo can say that. You know, because that's not in their world.
Exactly.
So
It's a
free
frame of
will
reference.
can't exist. You ask a girl in America, what do you want? She says, I want a home, I want to marry a doctor or a lawyer because he can earn a lot of money. Where the hell does she get that from? Now, a girl brought up in the Arab world says, I'd like to be part of the sheikh's wives, the 6 wives. I'd like to be number 1 wife in that group. Is that free will? There's never free will. When they raise you, you want to be a doctor. When I was a kid, you could be a spaceman, not a spaceman, policeman or a fireman. That's what we want to be, or a cowboy. Now, kids want to be space astronauts. Because the environment's different, the free will can't exist. Because you're always brought up as an Indian, and they wear feathers, and they dance around the fire, they go la 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 la. If you said to an Indian, it's ridiculous dancing around a fire with feathers. What does that do? The Indian will say, you know, I never thought of it that way. He gets mad at you. So he's saying, don't you have free will? Well, there's free will to wear feathers.
Yeah.
That's the way the Indians brought up. There can't be free will. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a frame
Now
of
you can
reference.
be broad by reading a great deal and traveling a lot and reading many books with different points of view, and you can learn how to say, I don't know enough about which point of view is the most appropriate.
Yeah.
But you can't say, this is the right one. That'd be right for you, because you're brought up as a Lutheran. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why free will is nonsense. But people are brought up to believe they have freedom of choice.
Yeah.
So when you're very young, you pledge allegiance to the flag, or you do jury duty if you're a good citizen.
Yeah.
In the Bible it says, judge not, lest you be judged. You know what that means? You don't judge other people. I don't know. When you do jury duty, you're judging other people. So I never had jury. I was called, never did it. Because I know that a gangster or a thief is no different than anyone else. They're just brought up in a different environment. And they become pickpockets. Now in the Arab world, they chop the hand off a pickpocket.
Yeah.
You know, that's their free will. You know, so it can't be free will.
Yeah.
And your notions of love come from movies, books, whatever. You hold a girl's hand. Now, when you meet a girl, women's values are different than men. What they talk about, pansy, lipstick, shit, most men are not interested in. But they want to get fucked. So in the future, people will fuck first and then go out. Because a guy goes out with a girl because he wants to fuck. No other reason. Oh, she's attractive to him. You know what I mean? So they take him out, the violin, music, nice play, and the girls have had a wonderful time. That isn't real. In the future, men and women will talk about the real things, not, hey, you're cute.
No dishonesty.
Yes.
Yes.
But we're dishonest automatically because the way we're brought up. You don't use that kind of language around girls. Well, girls say, we want to be treated as equal. Then say, fuck you. Then you're treated as equal. But if you change your language because your mother is respectable, I mean, respectable people to me are bums. They're not open-minded. To be open-minded, you have to listen to all ideas and reject them on the basis of the fact that it doesn't work, not because you don't like it. If I say if you brush your teeth every day, you won't have any dental caries. Most toothpaste has sugar in it, which injures your teeth.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of crap out there, so much of it. That's why the book, 100 Million Guinea Pigs, which you can't find in any library. You might find it on the internet. There's other books called Arms and the Men, showing the corruption of war. Not available. Why isn't it available? Because you can't control people if they know all these things. Do you understand?
In this cooperative, resource-based economy,
Yes.
I would like to know what kind of system will decide how resources will be distributed.
Very good.
Actually, I would like to know how it would be dealt with in the transition period, where there will exist scarcity.
Okay. We have a lot of films and discussions and meetings of a lot of people seeing films on the thinking of a resource-based economy. And when people seem to be qualified, they grasp it, you become an informer in what the Venus Project is. You go out and teach other people. You understand? So it's a transitional educational period of film showing when he says, I'm interested myself, why should I give a shit about anybody else? We show him that he's alive because Louis Pasteur did work and invented a vaccine. But Louis Pasteur did not get paid for what he did. He did it because he believed in what he was doing. Same with Jesus, Martin Luther King, Gandhi didn't do it for money. They tell you money is the incentive system. It's also incentive to corruption, embezzlement, taking care of your brother-in-law. You know, it isn't a good system.
How to decide who will...
First thing we have to ask is questions like, what kind of world do we want? Well, everybody must agree that we have to clean out the slums, take care of the sick. If they all agree with that, then we design that type of world. We design cities that take care of people, like the round city with everything in the middle, so everybody's the same distance. All big buildings will have medical care, dental care in the building, and schools, so you don't have to take your kids somewhere. So we decide how to conserve energy. So you have to standardize the rooftops with photoelectric cells. You can't make each rooftop different. Then you'd be wasting resources. And you can't produce a lot of stuff if everything is different. If every car is different. We turn out the best automobiles we know how to turn out, just like the Army Air Force has the best airplanes America knows how to turn out. It doesn't have cheap, old airplanes for some soldiers, new airplanes for others. They're all the latest, with laser beams, machine guns, cannons. They don't have different grades of warship. You have the latest aircraft carriers for the Navy. Do you understand?
Yeah.
We don't turn out any cheap automobiles or old automobiles. We turn out the best the world's technology can turn out at the time. But the automobiles are larger and smaller, but they're machined well. They're better than a Rolls Royce, because we don't want cars to wear out and break down. That's a burden on society. Do you understand that? But in the profit system, if your car wears out, I sell another car. So it's called planned obsolescence. That's cruel, yes.
Yes. Was wondering, what if in the transition phase that some resources become scarce and there's not enough to go around?
Yes.
What kind of electronic digital system?
Well, what we do during the transition, we say, if you don't want somebody coming into your house stealing your stuff, take your bicycle, put it in the bicycle center, put all your wheelbarrows and farm equipment so the whole community go and access it. When you're not using your lawnmower, it's at the center. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in the interim, if your eyeglasses have been surpassed, your eyesight has to be, you put it in the eyeglass center. All your surplus things that you don't need, you make available to other people.
So share things.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
That's the best you can do under those conditions.
Of course,
of
but perhaps there wouldn't be some kind of prioritizing to be made, and who gets food first or who gets
We
last.
now know that there's more than enough eyeglasses in stores and windows to provide everybody. There's coffee pots. There isn't a shortage anymore, except intentional shortages. You know, where they keep, you know what plowing under means? If the food market isn't selling, they plow under on the farm, turn over the crops, so that you have to pay a higher price.
Whatever is scarce, that's what would be worked on also.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Put.
There's no scarcity of anything. It's just maintained. Like there are diamond mines in Kimberley, Africa. They burn 40 tons of diamonds every year. They're made of carbon. That keeps the price up. If you kept turning out diamonds, the price goes down. So what you have to do, they're selling watches today for $5 that used to sell for $40. A lot of watch companies are turning them out. They're much cheaper today, but they're killing the watch industry,
Yeah.
the good watches, the expensive ones.
Yeah.
So if you can maintain scarcity, you can maintain price. But if you have scarcity of houses and people don't have money to buy houses, it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yeah, sure.
Good answer.
So when you say, how do you prioritize, who decides what is important is what you really want.
Yeah.
Who decides? There is no who. Here's how it's done. We know the first problems will be feeding people. So we extrude, you know what that means, extrude? We extrude bread continuously. The machine pumps dough out continuously. So the bread is one long, gigantic loaf. Then it's cut up. The bread contains every vitamin needed to live. So we produce that first to make sure people have food in the world. But you don't send them canned soup or anything. You dehydrate the soup. You know what that means? Take the water out, hermetically seal it, so one package will make a volume of soup. Do you understand? But if you go to schools and they bring in a loaf of bread, a can of beans, the package gets enormous. So all our packaging becomes uniform. And the stuff that the packaging is made of is biodegradable. Not only is it biodegradable, but it's made of nutrients for the soil. So when you throw it out there, it helps plants grow. There is no packaging that's dumped in the field. Everything is recycled. All buildings are made of components that slip together. And as you move on, you disengage it. You don't throw it out or burn it down. There are no fire engines because nothing can burn in the future. Now, today, it's better to sell refrigerators and sinks for every home. In the future, there'll be dining areas. You don't need to make bacon and eggs every morning, the same fucking routine. Mother's making bacon and eggs. You've got machines today that can make that by the ton, and you go to a restaurant, it's more efficient instead of a refrigerator in every home. But you do have, you know what a dumbwaiter is? It's like a little elevator. So you can dial what you want and get the food brought up to your home if you want that. Or you can cook your own food if you want that. It's just inefficient. I'd say people do that because they don't have any other options. But in the future you'll go out and have Swedish food, Greek food, and that's when this young lady came to me and said, I've been a waitress most of my life. Will I be a waitress in the Venus Project? I said, no, we don't need that, because the minute you sit at a table, the menu lights up. There might be a picture in the table, but when you sit down the menu, then it scans you. You wear a bracelet or something which identifies you. And if he has diabetes, the food is manipulated for him. So it scans everybody at the table, not like Big Brother watching over you. It's there to give you the best food to help you. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, no, there's no cook in the kitchen. Chef Milani or a good cook will prepare food in front of the computer. I don't know if you know how they work, but in the auto industry, they spray rubber under the metals of an automobile so the rain won't drive you crazy. Metal cars are insulated. But in order for a robot to do that, a man takes a spray gun and he gets under the car and he sprays the rubber and the unit follows him. It follows every move he makes and there's a program chip. And they slip it in. You only have to do it once and the machine will spray the rubber on every part of the car, just like a man does. So if a guy puts Coke bottle covers on, he has to do it the first time, but the computer picks that up. Then you put the chip in and it does that. You change the chip, it does something else. So you don't need to train people to do a uniform job. All uniform jobs are automated. Like, I don't know, if you go to Home Depot today, they're beginning to put machines in rather than a cashier, and you put your card through it. That does away with the cashier. If you carry that out completely, you'll see that eventually all industries are becoming more and more automatic. That means people won't have the purchasing power. Chef Milani or a good cook will prepare food in front of the computer. I don't know if you know how they work, but in the auto industry, they spray rubber under the metals of an automobile so the rain won't drive you crazy. Metal cars are insulated. But in order for a robot to do that, a man takes a spray gun and he gets under the car and he sprays the rubber and the unit follows him. It follows every move he makes and there's a program chip. And they slip it in. You only have to do it once and the machine will spray the rubber on every part of the car, just like a man does. So if a guy puts Coke bottle covers on, he has to do it the first time, but the computer picks that up. Then you put the chip in, and it does that. You change the chip, it does something else. So you don't need to train people to do a uniform job. All uniform jobs are automated. Like, I don't know, if you go to Home Depot today, they're beginning to put machines in rather than a cashier, and you put your card through it. That does away with the cashier. If you carry that out completely, you'll see that eventually all industries are becoming more and more automatic. That means people won't have the purchasing power to buy the goods. That's the end of the monetary system. Right now it's happening all over the world.
Exactly, yeah. Moving towards that system,
Yes.
You said...
Has nothing to do with me.
No, we're working on it.
Yes.
But in the transition period, moving towards the system...
There'll be trouble.
Yeah, and some people are going to decide what's important and what's not just as important.
Well, if they agree that they want the Venus Project, it'll come in.
Yeah.
If they don't, you're going to have trouble.
Yeah. But doesn't there have to be some kind of prioritizing?
Well, if those people that agree in world unification are working together, those that don't will be working elsewhere.
Yeah.
There'll be many different groups. Back to Jesus, Mankind United, all that will come back. Communism, socialism. We will be working in the direction of the Venus Project. And here's how they prioritize. First they ask what is needed first, mostly. Food and water. So that's what we concentrate on during the transition. Along with those learning how to implement these things. In other words, if you build a factory and you turn out food, and he turns out ingredients for the factory. So we build a factory connected with your ingredients that go into the food, the nutrients, not just the bread. He works on transportation of the food to all the cities. Well, if the cities look like they are today, transporting of food is a big, difficult job. But if you design your cities with centralized systems of distribution, you can distribute the food easier. You can't do it in these kinds of cities. People always invite us to their country and say, what do you think of our country? This shit won't work. It won't work in a result. You have to level the old cities. They're inefficient. When I was a kid, if you lived on the 5th floor, you had to walk up steps to the 5th floor. Today, no one. If you go up to 5 floors, you have to have an elevator. That's a zoning law. See? So what happens is we have to think in terms of the future. Every city that we design is not the best city in the world. It's the best we know up to now. 3 years from now, the city will undergo change. So every so many years, we bring in the latest TV sets and slip it in the wall. The wall is designed to receive things, and we pull out the old radio sets and radio and communication systems. As they improve, we install the latest without a price tag. The reason we do that is the smarter kids are, the safer the world is. When I use the term smart, I don't mean intelligent test. So I'm going to try to tell you what smart means. The ability to solve problems. The ability to innovate and change. The ability to bring people together, to work cooperatively. That's what I mean. Because not smart as it is today. High IQ, that's bullshit. If you have a high IQ, I wrote a story years ago where the world got in a nuclear war and about 40 people escaped in an airplane and they landed in the Amazon jungle safely. And they got out of the airplane. And the natives want to know how smart we are. So they give us a test. They say, what kind of animal went by here? We say, went by where? They say, did you see the parted grass? Oh, yeah. What kind of an animal was it? I don't know. Look at the footprints. Oh, yeah. How much did it weigh? I don't know. You can tell by the depth of the footprints, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Which
way was the animal going? I don't know. The branches are broken in that direction. Obviously, you guys are all dummies. Intelligent tests don't mean a thing except what you've been exposed to. Do you understand what I mean? Okay.
Yeah.
Is everybody clear on that?
Yeah.
That's why I want to make a lot of movies showing how that we're not intelligent, that as long as we have wars and prisons and police and jealousy and envy and serial killers, we're not intelligent. There is a way to do away with all that. That's in the schools. So in the schools, as kids are growing up, when they're 13 or 14, they have sex relations. Nobody says, you don't fuck until you get married. That's bullshit. You got a prick. You come out the day you got married. You understand what I mean? So we have to let people be free. Otherwise, they're always looking at a girl's tits or ass or something, because then we're brought up in scarcity. Of course, today the world is a little different than it was when I was a kid. People didn't screw around.
Yeah.
That is, knowingly. You didn't know about it. And they had whorehouses people went to, you know. But today, you have to seduce a girl. In the future, she goes to bed because she wants to get laid. You don't have to seduce anybody. So it's so different in the future. It's hard. I can't get up in an auditorium and say this to normal people. They get mad. So you have to change your language and kind of feed it to them in doses, a little bit at a time. That's why we have seminars. If you guys already looked at our website, you're part of the way there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you came because of addendum, you know, it means you're part of the way there. I can talk to you more directly. But if conventional newspaper reporters come here, it's hard for me to instantly say, God damn, you're a crude person, you know. I understand that too, so I have to edit what I say, which is unfortunate. But I'll say as much as I can get away with.
We have to bridge the difference between people and you.
You have to do that too.
Yeah.
When you go out into the world, you remember the Arab that believed the earth was flat?
Yeah.
If you were there yesterday?
Yeah.
Well, you have to do that with people. You have to explain it in terms they can understand.
Yeah.
I never got a chance to tell people yesterday how I changed the Ku Klux Klan. I never got a chance to because the time was up. The guy told me. But I will tell you about it if you want to know that.
Yes.
So what do you for your question first?
Yeah. Speaking of the Venus Project,
Yes. We prioritize due to need. We turn out the food first, then medical care on vehicles. There's x-ray machines, they travel to poor areas where there's no hospital. Then we have ships called hospital ships. So we can anchor off the coast of Africa and treat the Africans right away, not 2 years from now. We put equipment, medical equipment on ships, trailers, and doctors travel like Doctors Without Borders. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, if you've got a better idea, let's have it. I don't know what else to do. Okay.
You're saying it's a technical process.
Everything is
deciding
technical.
what we need.
You know, politics was great 100 years ago, but politicians don't know how to do these things. They don't know how to prioritize things.
Exactly.
So we prioritize things not based on your religion or do you like the Venus Project, but everybody in the Venus Project that agrees with this direction, our priorities are based upon surveys, not Fresco's opinions about anything.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I have no power in the future. Yes.
In the society we wish to implement, some people would want or need drugs, and wouldn't those people suffer
Yes,
from
they
their
would.
own abuse?
Yes, they would.
And would it be made available to them?
Yes, it would.
It would.
Yes.
Okay.
But
Would you elaborate?
you will, if you, see, we show people smoking cigarettes, talking, but then we show the human lung, real film, and it stretches. If you smoke a long time, it tears, and then cancer cells form. Then the guy chokes, can't breathe. We show a guy dying, real, in a hospital, try to breathe. He's been smoking for 20 years. We don't say stop smoking. We show films of the results of a certain viewpoint. Do you understand? If you don't get it, you can still smoke if you want to.
Okay,
We don't order you not to smoke. If you try to do that, it'll go underground. People will smoke in the summer. If you try to ban religion, it'll go underground. Don't ban anything.
But
If you
what-
continue to smoke, you will die
Yeah.
of cancer. If not immediately, a little later. Yes.
What would assure self-control in people who are affected to drugs?
Will we control them?
No, what would assure their self-control? How can we be sure that they won't harm
Well,
other
if
people?
they come over and say, I would like to try to give up smoking, then we will give them the best treatment we have up to now. That's
But
the
then
best we
there are
can
a
do.
lot of people that do drugs that want to get off and want help.
Yeah.
It's extremely expensive. You know what I mean? There's no room in the clinics for them. They have to wait in line.
Yeah.
We'd have all that available, trying to help
No,
people all the time.
you can
Yeah,
smoke
of
whenever
course,
you want to, but we do show films of the results, what it's doing to your body, not say, that's a bad thing. We don't say that, we know it is.
Yeah. But if people would want drugs or need them,
They can have
it
them.
would. They can have
They
them.
can have it.
But what makes
But
sure that
along-
they don't harm other people when
What's that?
being affected by drugs?
They don't drive vehicles, they don't operate trains, they don't operate communication systems. That's the price if you want to drive. You can't operate things that people depend on because you're less competent.
Exactly.
Is that right? You don't fly airplanes with 1,000 bastards in them
Yeah.
if you're smoking pot all day long.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want to put you in a position to hurt other people. You'll understand that.
Yeah.
You say, but I want to fly airplane. Well, then you're helped.
Yeah.
Yes, you're not hurt. You're not put in prison. Yes.
Okay, you are helped, but what if you don't want help? What
And if you
say
don't want help, you go to a mental hospital. There
So-
they help you in whatever way they can.
So it would
If
be
you say, I
forced on
like
people.
shooting people, what's the matter with it? I don't like them and I shoot them. Now, you can let that guy loose, but it won't work.
Yeah.
So you have to put him in an area that tries to work on him.
Yeah.
They use the best methods available without a price tag. Our job is to help people come back to the most operant forms of behavior that benefit everyone, not a selected few. Can you understand that?
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree.
So I said the transition will be painful. I'm sorry about that, unless you have some other methods for affecting the transition smoother. And I'm sure we'll find other methods while we're doing it. But I don't like the transition because it will be painful.
Yeah.
I wish I could use logic, and everybody says, yes, let's build the Venus Project tomorrow.
Yeah.
That'd be wonderful. But you're not going to get that. Let's be real. I'm a dirty realist. You know what that means? I know that people can't make that step. Okay?
Yeah. And we were.
Oh, when I was in the Army, I changed top brass. Turned them around, too. Go ahead, read
Okay.
on.
My next question is regarding competition. This society is based on competition,
Yes, it is.
and there would be some sort of competition, we imagine, in the Venus Project.
No.
But when is competition harmful? When would you define it?
Always. Because when I was a kid, I used to build special model airplanes with wings that would rotate. And I got the idea I dropped a piece of balsa wood rotated to the ground. Went forward too. So if I made S-shaped wings, maybe they can rotate and take off in shorter distances. So every time I went to a model airplane meeting, the normal people, normal means fucked up. I don't know if I got that across. Used to look at me and say, what the hell is that supposed to be? The normal kids used to build airplanes where you wind up the rubber propeller. They all looked alike. All the airplanes kids built were conventional. My stuff was always radical and different. Most of it did not work. Because when you step out from the norm, you're going to have to go through a lot of transition to make a helicopter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't fly right away. They're in trouble. So my airplanes used to crash a lot, the models I built. So whenever I came to a model airplane meeting with my planes, the guys used to laugh. It was normal to their background. Say, what the hell is that supposed to be? They were all very different types of airplanes. So they used to, sometimes they beat me up once in a while too. And they make fun of me. But I did enough invention on my own to know that I had to go through a process, a lot of failure to get to a good plane. I found that on my own, but if I depended on what other guys said, that's a lousy design, and I wanted approval, I would do the same thing they're doing. So all of us want approval so we conform. So I bring up kids not to conform to our system, even our system. Say, see what you can do to make it better, always. We don't say you live in the best country in the world. We say we house more people than anybody. We provide medical care and food. We don't say it's the best country in the world. We don't use propaganda, yes.
Yes. I was wondering if you might say that something can be called healthy competition. For instance, if you play a video game with one of your friends.
Or sports, maybe.
Or sports. And you not necessarily have this negative attitude. You know, you can compete for winning in the video game, and it's healthy.
Is competition good? Anything about it? The answer is no. Here's how we replace it.
Yeah.
When you play tennis in the future, you play against yourself. There's an image of yourself, and you get better at it. You don't need to beat him. If you can beat him in tennis, maybe your coordination is better. Because as a kid, you'd walked on a fence, and you developed your coordination. He hasn't, and he feels he lost the game. In the future, you'll understand he has a longer period of coordination training.
Yeah.
So if you run faster than me, I don't sit there sad. I understand that you've had more walking experience. You lived in the country. You ran a lot. So it's not, God damn it, I wish I could do what you can do. You can understand that.
Yeah, okay.
So you don't get mad. Now the most difficult thing to understand is jealousy.
People are a victim of their culture.
Yeah.
Everyone are raised within their
Yes.
culture. And so when you present your ideas, it's hard for people to comprehend.
Yes, it is. Unless they spend time or they read.
Yeah.
Or they go to the library and read a book like The New American History, which tells us how we took the land from the Indians. You know, real history books don't cover that too much, you know.